Well, it's the first weekend of LCS with coverage brought to you by Alien. We're here in the summer split, second day, an unfortunate loss against 100T, but I'm joined right now by Blaber to talk about that loss and how things are shaping up on Cloud9. So, Blaber, first off, let's talk about that game against 100T. Pretty one-sided on the 100T side. What went wrong?
I think the game was just we're playing reactively, and both our side lanes supposedly losing, right? So we should have pressure in mid jungle to be able to help side lanes, but unfortunately, like at level 4, Luca flash W to ward, and then regardless of that, I think we shouldn't have forced that hard, anyways, because we knew the Zven was bot side. But after that happened and Luca died one more time, I think the game was pretty rough.
Gotcha. Okay. How do you? What is this team like compared to the team that won spring? Because it does, obviously, you guys have made a change in the bot lane. You've got all this experience from MSI, but also perhaps like the frustration of the defeats at MSI. So where's the team at now compared to where it was at the end of spring?
I wouldn't know exactly to say where we're in comparison. I do think we're pretty bad right now. Like honestly, we've had 3 days of scrims, and we definitely haven't been or felt as strong as we were before MSI. Right? Obviously, at MSI we were struggling a bit versus the Asian teams, but before MSI we were like kind of stomping scrims, and then we're not like losing hard or anything, but we just don't feel as it doesn't feel as strong as we were before. So I think it's just something that we have to work on. These teams have been scrimming for like 3 weeks to a month now, and we came back to scrim on this patch for 3 days. So I don't think any of us are too worried.
How is King integrating into the team?
I think he's doing pretty well. I think he's learning really fast. I would say that at the beginning it was like a bit rough for him, right? I think he was also a bit nervous, but I really think that he's been learning really fast, and I think he's integrating quite well into, I guess, understanding what we want as players as a team.
I had Fudge on Hotline League this week, and we asked him about the Zven stuff, and he was very coy. And so I will ask you again, as I'm sure you expected. What was the reason that Zven ended up not starting this week?
I think I don't know like how much I am supposed to talk about it, right? But I think we just decided that Calvin could be a good fit for the team. Like promoting him could maybe help us out as a team, maybe as in the team atmosphere or maybe in communication or something like that. But we thought it would be a good decision, I guess, to bring him up and have him try out the LCS this week.
No, we didn't get a chance to talk during MSI, but it was a wild ride for Cloud9, and you in particular. We had somebody on Hotline League this week who was disappointed in Cloud9's social media folks, who I assume, he didn't know it maybe, but obviously Portillo, Mateus, for changing the name of the Twitter handle to Crab9. And there was a bit of concern from this user or this caller that you might be, that might discourage you. There might be some tilt or something like that, seeing that type of stuff. So, one, how did you deal with that? Did it affect you at all? Just to answer this question from the show, but also, what was your mental space like during MSI, and how were you doing?
Yeah, I don't actually think like I personally don't care at all about the Twitter drama or like what's going on. Like I honestly think it's kind of funny. Like yeah, I entered pretty hard for the crab, right? And I think I wasn't really tilted or anything. I think at some points of MSI I was really upset slash sad. Not had anything to do with the games itself, but because we're getting smashed in scrims. So I was like, wow, this it sucks, right? Like to get smashed in scrims. Um, I think that was like earlier in MSI, but like to be honest, I actually don't think I played as poorly as everyone makes it out to seem. I think I had some really bad games at the beginning, and people just remember that, I guess, for the rest of the tournament, which is fair, right? Like I don't think I played great or anything, but I think I just had some really poor games at the beginning. Like obviously, Flash for Crab is really bad, right? But that was one game out of the 16 I played. Um, and I think we just didn't really perform that well as a team. I think there were a lot of times we could have stepped up at the tournament in team fights and won the late game, and either I got caught or my teammates got caught or we just got outplayed.
What were the reasons why you felt like you had like a slow start to the tournament? And then perhaps, well, here, let me also ask you this: do you feel like you reached your potential during the event? Like, do you think you played as well as you could have, or do you think you went from like struggling to like average? You know what I mean? Because it did
Mhm.
feel like, obviously everyone's super excited about MVP Blaber going off and gonna kick some people around. It felt like we didn't get to see that, and I don't know if how much of that was like because hey, beating some of the teams that are in the LCS is a lot easier than facing some of these MSI teams versus like you're in Iceland and I don't know, maybe scrims are bad and maybe the meta's tough. I don't know. So I'm kind of curious, like from your perspective, where how well did you perform compared to what you do in the LCS?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with I think people have some unreal expectations of uh I guess me and my team. Like it happened a lot in Spring Split and NA where I'm just killing 5 people before 15 minutes and I'm like carrying the whole game alone. I'm solo killing the enemy jungler and it's like that's like now expected of you in the international stage. And if like both teams are going 0-0-0 or like your laners are losing or you're behind a bit, it's like, oh, he's like, well, he's just bad now. But that's just how it is when you play against better players. Like you can't punish as hard, right? Like I'm not doing to Canyon what I'm doing to like players in North America. So I think I was struggling a bit at the beginning of the tournament because I was playing some really off meta picks. I think my first 2 games playing Nidalee without Renekton and Kindred, when everyone's playing Morgana, Rumble, and Udyr, I was struggling a bit because it was a lot harder to play those characters because you're just weaker. And then obviously I don't think I had the best games either. And I was struggling to adapt a bit, I guess. I think in NA I'm very used to my laners winning a lot too, but internationally it's a lot harder. Um, so I think at the beginning it was just harder to adapt to realizing like, oh, your laners will probably be losing or um and like playing differently, I guess.
Yeah. Do you feel like you played? Were you the same level of Blabber just against tougher opponents? That's kind of what it sounds like you're saying.
I don't know if I was the same. I think it's really hard to judge because I felt like I didn't play that great. I felt like I played okay, but I don't think I played um to what I expected of myself, I guess. And I think obviously I don't think my teammates think that they played the best they could either, right? I think we all believe that we could play better, and if we played a little bit better in 3 or 4 of those games, we could have made it out. I think so. I think it's hard for me to say if I feel like I'm better if I played up to my potential at MSI, but I'm hoping that I can play better in the future at international events because I mean we weren't able to make it out of the Rumble stage, right? So that is pretty unfortunate.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's bring it back to LCS. So here's the interesting thing. You guys, you only did like the 3 days of practice. I totally get it because you guys have a really big lead. You get to carry over your score, and also you did MSI, and it's you have just a ton of games in summer. So it kind of makes sense to me that like there might be not be as much pressure to be like, okay, we need to hit the ground running as hard as we possibly can. However, then you lose against 100 Thieves like this, and that feels bad. I know it just every player when you lose it just feels bad. So I'm kind of curious, based off of the games that you've played so far this weekend, we haven't seen the third one. Are you starting to feel like, oh God, we got to get back in the lab and really like get going, or do you feel like we've got a long enough runway that we can figure this stuff out?
I don't think any of us are like too stressed out about this. I think we just implemented a new player. I think honestly, I feel the worst for Calvin or King because generally when you integrate a new player, right, benching a really good player into Zven, like if you are underperforming, he might start blaming himself, and it's not obviously not a good look for like a new player if his team starts losing with him and is winning with another player, right? But I hope he's not like too stressed out about it or something. I'm personally not too worried. I don't think my teammates are either, and it's just something that we'll work on going into the future. Um, so hopefully we'll like be able to come back.
Is there anything that you want to say to any of the fans out there?
Yeah, thanks for supporting us, guys. I know like we're not looking super great right now, and obviously we came off MSI not doing that well either. So hopefully we'll be back in form in the coming weeks before we go into playoffs and hopefully make the worlds.
Thank you so much, Blaber, for the interview. I really appreciate it. And for everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage of all things LCS right here on my YouTube channel. Oh my gosh, it's so good to be back in these games, watching them, enjoying them, interviewing people after them. It's fantastic. Speaking of good in games, Alienware, in partnership with Team Liquid, has now officially launched Good in Gaming, which is an initiative in order to provide opportunities and programs to people who seek to grow, learn, network, and compete in the esports industry. They've got all sorts of cool stuff like tournaments, mentorships, scholarships, all this kind of stuff. It's really cool to see what they're doing. You can head on over to alienware.com/goodingaming. I'd recommend you do it because it's just neat to see this program that they've been able to build out to support the next generation of esports industry folks. Because let's be clear, I'm getting kind of tired. I don't know how much longer I can do this. It's a pain in the butt. You guys don't subscribe. No, I'm just kidding. But if you do want to subscribe, that would be cool. Either way, I'm so happy to be back making this content. And shout out to Alienware for Good in Gaming. Awesome to see.